All right, what is going on, guys? It's Raul here. We got the new Captain's Raptor. It's in the Z-Flex Jawbreaker plastic. This thing's super sick, feels good. It's got a little bit of give to it. I'm gonna compare it to the first run and the second run Captain's Raptor, but before we get into it, I just wanna say that I am gonna be doing a giveaway with this specific disc. What you have to do is drop a comment on this video and then follow Calculated Disc Golf on Instagram, and if this video gets 1,000 views, then I will pick someone for the giveaway on my Instagram. So just make sure you have a comment on this video and you're following the Instagram, and then once it hits 1,000 views, I'll post the post for the giveaway and you'll see the details on there. We got third run cap wrap, second run signed by Paul at Memorial last year, and first run. These two are both not thrown that much, so they're both kind of gonna fly relatively similar to what they were when they first came out. This thing's brand new, haven't thrown it once. This right here is gonna be my first throw, so let's just see how it goes. We're gonna throw, let's just go in order. Let's go first run first, and we're just gonna throw it on a slight hyzer. Out in the field, we have a little bit of headwind, so keep that in mind, and let's just see. Yep, that thing is super beefy, just like I remember it. Pretty much just flies like a brand new flat top Firebird or any overstable 9-speed, but is very reliable, never wants to flip at all. I remember this thing being a little bit straighter. Let's see if I could get a similar angle to that one. Yeah. You could see that initial straight push on it. The other one wanted to come down right away and fade towards the ground, whereas that one pushes straight while it's fading and it has a softer fade. So it's better for those shots, especially if you beat it in. That's a useful disc. A little bit straighter, but definitely still reliable and has a lot of integrity at the end. Now let's see how this flies. I do not know how it flies, and I haven't really watched any videos, so this is gonna be a surprise to me. I'm curious. My guess is it's gonna be somewhere in between those two. It's pretty stable. I would say my prediction was correct. I think it has a little bit more glidey push than the first run, but it definitely didn't like push straight like the second run. Like it was fading right away, but it just seemed a little bit more glidey, whereas the first one is just a dumper, wants to get down, and is just a classic 9-speed, reliable, overstable. So we're gonna bring them back, throw it on some flat lines, see how they perform. So I went to check them out. Essentially where they were was this first run and the newest one were pretty much in line with each other. This one was more right, just because it dumped straight to the ground and kind of just sat there, whereas this one was dumpy and didn't go as far as the second run, but it glided left more. So this one actually got more left, just because it's thick grass, it's not really skipping out here. So it glided left a little bit, whereas this thing just came down straight on that spike hyzer and just kind of sat there. And then the second one was probably like 30, 40 feet past them, just because it had that straight push and glide, and it was kind of in between the middle of these in width as well. We're gonna throw it on some flat shots and see how they compare in that too. So first run, just gonna throw it straight out there, try to give it some speed. So yeah, good rip out there, threw it flat, pushed straight for a second, didn't want to turn at all, started fading right away and got down to the ground pretty quick. So pretty much what I expected from that thing. This mic keeps falling off me here, but it's all right. Second run, on a flat hard shot, this might even turn a little bit. Let's see. We do still have a slight headwind out here. So I would say I probably threw that on a little bit more of a hyzer, so not as flat as the first run, and it still pushed straighter and further than the first run. So that is what I was expecting from that. It definitely went further, but it is not as overstable, so maybe not as reliable in wind, but we'll get you that slight extra distance. Now let's see how this is, and if it's kind of somewhere in between the two or is closer to the first. Let's see. Honestly, that just came out a little bit early and weak. It did get to the ground very fast, but I didn't throw it as fast as the first one. But it does have a pretty similar flight as that first run. Like I said, maybe just a little bit glidier. It does have a slightly better hand feel in like slightly colder weather, just because it's softer, whereas the first run is very stiff, so it's hard to get a good grip on it. So that's the main difference I'm seeing in that one versus the first run, is just the hand feel, whereas the flight is pretty close. It's just a little bit glidier. So we're gonna bring them back or go over there and throw some anhyzer shots. All right, so on the flat release, this one went the furthest by 40 feet. I'm not getting distances on these, but I'd say it probably went around like, I don't know, 330 or so, maybe 340. And then this one went a little bit shorter than the first run, but I really didn't get a good rip on it. It came out a little bit early, but the stability I saw was pretty close. So we're gonna throw it on some flex lines, see if that's a good tell for the real stability of these. So this one first, I remember this is what Paul was really presenting when he first got this disc, was the low speed flex lines and the high speed flex lines. The high speed being a tight flex and having a little bit of push, but then coming out, and then the low speed getting that drift, but still having a little late stability. But we're gonna throw it hard and just seeing how tight of a flex line we could get. I just throw it at the bags around there, put it on some turn, keep it relatively flat in height, and see how fast it comes out. Yeah, so got that on some good turn. It pushed over and then faded out kind of quick. It seemed like I put a little bit of nose up on it, so it came out a little bit faster than maybe it could have, but we're gonna throw it on a similar angle, see how this one goes. I think this one will hold for a bit, actually. Yeah. That honestly did come out early and a little bit soft, but it pushed way further than the first run. It came released early, you saw out there onto the left, but it still held over. If I got a rip on that, I think it would have pushed even more right. But you could see that one just has a lot more straight push. Let's see how this thing handles on the flex line. I'm gonna try to give it a good rip and just commit to it so we could get a good idea how it goes on that flex line. Try to give it a good rip here. Yeah, that one's definitely overstable. So I threw it pretty similar to the first one. I'd say I got a little bit more power on it, so it pushed further. And like I've been saying this whole time, it has a little bit of glide at the end. So that's why instead of coming straight down, it flexes and then glides out as it's pushing forward, but fades to the ground still faster than the second run. So it's literally right in between the two. All right, so they surprisingly actually all landed around the same distance. Again, I didn't get a distance. If I had to guess, probably 330, 340. But something interesting is the most overstable one finished the most right. The most understable or straight one finished in the middle, and then in between the two finished left. And it honestly makes sense because the overstable, you know, goes on flex, comes down, digs into the ground, sits. The straight one actually pushes more right and then comes left, lands softly. And the glidey one has that overstable fight out of the flex, but then glides left. So it's interesting. This thing definitely wants to get left because it stays in the air, whereas this one wants to get down to the ground, and this one has straight push. So they're all different and unique in their own way. Now we're gonna do this sidearm. I'm gonna throw them on a stock angle, so I'm gonna try to get it as flat as I can. It'll probably come out with a little bit of hyzer, just because that's how it goes, but we'll start with the first run. Yep, definitely came out with hyzer, so we'll try to just do the other ones like that. But you see how fast that one wanted to get to the ground? It didn't want to flip up, it didn't want to go straight. It wanted to get down to the ground, and it got a little bit of skip, more so than the backhand, but it's beefy. Like, it wants to get down to the ground and not stay in the air. So now we'll throw this one. Look at that straight push. That one and the first one's like a night and day difference. The first one wants to get straight to the ground. That one wants to fly straight for a little bit. Still overstable, don't get me wrong, but it wants to fly and go straight and then get down to the ground. So we're gonna see how this one is. I have a feeling it's gonna be like the first run. We'll see if it has that glide like the backhand did. I definitely threw that one higher, but I think if I threw the first one like that, it would have came straight down to the ground. I threw that one on a hyzer like the other ones, just a little bit higher, but it rose and glided to the right, where I literally think if I would have thrown that first run right out of the hand, it would have just been straight to the ground. And then the second one, it would have pushed straight and then had that slow fade. So holds true to what I was saying about the backhand. We'll throw them on some flex shots. All right, so this one landed the shortest by a bit, like 30 feet or so. And then this one and the second one were in line with each other. This one was a little bit more right because it glided right, like I was saying before. So now we're just gonna throw it on some like standstill chop sidearms, kind of like you're carving a shot through the woods. Probably throw it like 300, 310 power and see how they wanna fly. So I'm gonna aim kind of right of the bags and drift it out left. Good follow through here. So yeah, I mean, a great disc. Give it some height, chop it over, get a little S-line out of it, but I definitely wanted to fade out pretty quick. Like right when it started pushing, it started fighting right away. This thing will hold it for a while, I bet. Yeah, like that was genuinely a pretty similar angle out of the hand. It just held that for a long time, but it's overstable still, so it stayed in the air and then even got a skip back at the end, but for the majority of the flight it was pushing left, came back and skipped at the end. So this thing will probably, you guys already know, it's gonna push over, fade out, and glide out at the end. Yep, exactly what I said. Pushed over to the left, didn't want to hold it like the second run, but it didn't want to get straight down like the first run. So it pushed over and then glided out at the end. So there you go. All right, guys, so final thoughts. The first run, very overstable. Doesn't matter what line I put it on, forehand, backhand. Essentially just wants to get down to the ground as fast as it can. The second run is the opposite of that. It wants to push straight and glide while still being a reliable, overstable fairway driver. And then the new Z Flex third run is in between those. So it's overstable like the first run, where it doesn't want to push straight, but in its fade, it wants to glide and finish either left or right, forehand or backhand. So I definitely think it's useful and different than the other two Captain's Raptors, which is cool that it's not just like a replica of one of the first two runs. It's unique and got its own flight and feel for sure. I don't think I ever talked about it, but it has a slight little shoulder and a mild dome, but it has a little bit of give. It's not super gummy, it's not super stiff, so it feels really good for backhand and still feels good for the forehand, even though it has a little give. Usually I don't like gummy discs for sidearm, but it's not super gummy. It still has a good feel in the hand. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to drop a comment on this video. Follow Calculated Disc Golf on my Instagram. If it gets to 1,000 views, then I will post the giveaway and I will select a winner a day or two after, but all the details will be in the post. So again, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.